Hello, algebra students. Today we are going to be continuing to work with point slope form. So we figured out how to take a point and a slope and be able to write an equation. And that is something I really enjoy, the point slope formula. It's so nice and easy to use to actually get an equation written. It's so fast. But if we were going to, at one point, maybe graph this or be able to figure out some of the characteristics of the line, slope-intercept form would be what we would be most used to. So that's what we're going to work on today, is taking equations that are in point slope form and change them into slope-intercept form. So you already know that point slope form is this highlighted in yellow, y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Remember the x sub 1 and the y sub 1, that's where we're putting in numbers. We're also putting in a number for the slope, for the y. Right? And we've already talked about where all these different parts come from. It really all just comes from the slope formula. Now, if I give you, for instance, in number 1, a point and a slope, we should be able to write this equation in point slope form. And I need to have my pen turned on, I guess. So we should be able to write point slope form. That's what we worked on yesterday. And then we're going to change that into slope-intercept form. You have already done quite a bit of this. That's not going to be a big challenge for us. So remember, point slope form is y minus the y number that I'm going to substitute equals m times x minus the x number that I'm going to substitute. So every ordered pair has an x and it has a y, and remember these are like my ones. So I'm going to have y minus my y number, which is a 1, equals the slope, which is negative 3, times x minus my x number, which is negative 2. I would make sure that we did a keep change right here. Make sure that looks like just x plus 2. So I have y minus 1. Now this is getting it into slope-intercept form. I want to get the y by itself. And to do that, I have to start by getting rid of the parentheses. So we will distribute. So negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And negative 3 times a positive 2 would be a negative 6. The last thing that we have to do to get the y by itself is get rid of that 1. So we would add 1, and then think about where we would put that. We would probably want to put it with that negative 6 that I have. So y equals negative 3x, negative 6 plus 1 is going to be negative 5. Now, here's the thing that is, I think, a good thing, but maybe you are going to be a little frustrated. We've already asked you to do this exact kind of problem. I have given you examples where the equation was in point slope form. We just didn't know that that's what it was called at the time. So changing from point slope into slope intercept is something that we are going to be just fine with. This is not going to be a challenge at all. In number 2, remember every ordered pair has an x and a y, and remember these are like my x1 and y1. So y minus my y number, which is a 2, equals negative 1/2 times x minus 1. First step is going to be distributing. So I'll have a negative 1/2 x, and a negative 1/2 times a negative 1 would be a positive 1/2. We are going to end up with slopes often that are fractions, and most of the time when we distribute that fraction, it's going to end up with something nice. We're picking numbers that are going to work well with that. Now, I would want to get rid of that 2. And remember, it doesn't match up with the x. I would want to put it over here. So I have a negative 1/2 x. 1/2 plus 2 could be written as 2.5. It could be written as 2.5. It could be written as 5 over 2. Any of those would be just fine. In this problem, number 3, we've got y minus our y number. Notice I didn't even bother to write that down this time. Y minus 2 equals my slope times x minus my x number. In case you haven't picked up on this yet, this is always going to be a two-step process now to change point slope into slope intercept. The first step is going to be our distribution. I shouldn't say it's always 2 steps, but it won't be more than 2 steps. Occasionally when we have like a 1 or a 0, it kind of cleans things up more quickly. Now that I distributed, I'm just going to add my 2. So I have that y equals 2x minus 4. Slope-intercept form, nice, easy numbers. In number 4, we're going to have y minus my y number. I will say that a really common mistake I see is that people forget that it's always going to be a subtraction, and if you happen to have a negative number, you have to have minus a negative. It doesn't just kind of take over the negative from the number. The slope is 3, and then x minus the x number. So I would, on both of these, change that to keep, change. So I have y plus 9 equals 3x plus 3. And then we just get rid of the 9. The number that's with the y is always the second step to get rid of. And positive 3 minus 9 would be a negative 6. Let's try one with a fraction slope. Both of these have fraction slopes. So y minus my y number equals my slope times x minus my x number. This is what I meant, that usually we're going to give you fraction stuff that works really nicely with the x's that we've got in here. So this will still be a y minus 1 equals negative 1/4 x. That's no big deal. Here I would do a keep, change. So this is really a positive 4 times a negative 1/4. They're different signs, so it'll be a negative. 1/4 times 4 is 1. If that doesn't make sense in your head, you can absolutely write stuff down. 1/4 times 4 over 1. We can do some simplifying there, and I'm going to get a 1. And then I will add 1. However, subtracting 1 from here plus 1 cancel each other out. You could certainly write plus 0 at the end, but you know for slope-intercept form that that's not necessary. And for our last example, we have y minus the y number, negative 3, equals 2/5 times x minus my x number. So I'm going to do a keep, change. I've got y plus 3 equals 2/5 x. This is going to be minus 2/5 times 5. Well, 1/5 of 5 is 1, so 2/5 would be 2. You could also write this down and say 2/5 times 5 over 1. We're going to simplify those, and I just get 2. And then my last step again is just to get rid of the number that's with the y. So we're going to subtract 3. So y equals 2/5 x minus 5. Today's worksheet is point slope form to slope intercept form. You're going to write your equations in point slope form, and then you solve for y with a 2-step process. If you need any help with this, make sure that you ask. There's an answer key in Schoology, and then make sure that you take the formative when you're done. Let me know if you need any help.